Big week coming up. Big week coming up. Welcome in to a Thursday episode of the SpringBlake College Football Show. Today is September 18th, just a couple of days away from week 4 of the college football season. We have got game previews, we've got best bets, we've got the latest SpringBlake Sweet 16, my top 16 power rated teams in the country. Is there anything else we have? I think that's it. I think that's all we're doing today. I keep lying to you guys. I said on Monday's show, after doing a 2-episode week last week, I came in here on Monday and I said 3 days a week. I got too much to talk about. I can't make 3 days a week work. I got too many things to balance in my life. My lovely, lovely girlfriend has been neglected through the early parts of the college football season. My attention is needed to be put back in there. So we're going to go 2 episodes a week. We're going to do Monday, Thursday, recap show on Monday, biggest storylines, any potential early nuggets for the upcoming week. And then Thursday is going to be preview show, best bets. I'm not sure what to do with the Sweet 16. Maybe it's a Monday thing. Maybe it's a Thursday thing. It might change week to week. That's the plan moving forward. Before we get into everything today, I have to say it at the top of every show. If you are here for the first time, first of all, thank you so much. It's a college football show, which means I'm SpringBlake. It's your ball knower's favorite ball knowing show. So obviously you're here for a good reason. You are trying to either become a ball knower or you already are a ball knower. If you're trying to become one, if you're here for the first time and you're on YouTube, please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. If you are listening, Apple, Spotify, please subscribe to the channel, leave a 5-star review, and make sure to also follow my socials. That is both Twitter and TikTok at SpringBlakeCFB. If you already are a ball knower and you're here for episode 5 or episode 10 or 19, if you've been here from the very start, first of all, congratulations on being a well-seasoned ball knower. Make sure, are you subscribed to the channel? Are you liking the video? Did you leave a 5-star review? All of that support helps me keep and grow this show. We have been hitting it off on TikTok this past week, so I'd love to get the following there. If you've joined me from social, if you found me on the For You page, thank you. Keep following along with this show. Keep interacting with me. I try and get in the comments as much as I can, especially on TikTok, but we've had a few that there's just been a laundry list here. We had a really fun Billy Napier talk the other day there, so I try to do as much interaction as possible. I love doing this show, and I'm very thankful for all the support that we have been getting through just, the first, month basically, or maybe 2 at this point. So, as I said, game previews to get into today. We're going to get this one off first. We're just going to rip the Band-Aid right off. Florida traveling to Miami. Not that bad of a trip, but a really tough back-to-back going LSU to Miami. Don't forget they got Texas and then A&M the 2 weeks after. But for now, they're heading to South Florida. The spread is Miami minus 7.5. The total is set at 51.5. Game previews. I have not liked the way in which we've done them, so we're going to try something a little bit different. A few different nuggets to hit on with each game, and then I give you my pick. So let's start with the stories of the season for both of these teams. For Miami, it has been the passing game, and that's both offensively and defensively. Carson Beck has looked so good to start this season, very reminiscent of the version of him we saw in 2023, and a lot of that comes with having guys around him to prevent him from needing to play hero ball like he did last season. They have one of the best and biggest offensive lines in the sport. They have a couple receivers really emerging as stars and good run support off of that as well. And then defensively, it hasn't been a night and day difference, but the incremental growth that they have been getting in their secondary has in turn made this defense so much more impactful on a week in, week out basis. Last year, couldn't stop a nosebleed. I even think of the last game we got to see for them in Syracuse. It was just marching down the field again, and McCord was just pushing that on them. If you are always able to attack a secondary, guess what? The strength of your defense, which is an awesome front line, doesn't have that much time to make its impact known and felt. It has been this season. The defensive line has been great, and a lot of that goes hand in hand with what we've seen from the Miami secondary. So that's the story for the Canes. For the Gators, it has just been an inability to find any semblance of an identity or rhythm on offense. Lagway, he didn't get much time this offseason to work in and develop. He was banged up. It was leg stuff, shoulder stuff, calf stuff in the summer. He never really got time to get his feet wet, and they lost 2 wide receivers to the NFL, so you have to replace those guys. The offensive line, pretty stable, same with the run game, but it just hasn't had a chance to really develop, and Lagway himself hasn't had the chance to grow as a passer, and because of that, things have looked really clunky on offense. It has been some games where they're really reliant on the run, and then some games where it's Lagway having to do a whole lot on his own. Last week, it led to 5 interceptions, a really shitty offensive performance where Florida was the better team overall on Saturday, and instead they lose by 10 points to LSU. So for them, it's been the inability to get an identity, to find, a way to consistently put up points on offense, and which has let down what I believe to still be a really talented Florida Gators team. So moving along now to the matchup to watch in this game, both trench battles deserve all the love and attention in the world. Some of the best players you'll see on Saturday in these games are going to be on the offensive line for Miami, the defensive line for Miami, and both lines for the Gators. However, the storyline and the matchup to watch in this game is how DJ Lagway goes against what I said that improved Miami's secondary. This is a really tricky situation for a young quarterback. You are this projected star, the face of the program, the guy that's going to lift the Gators into relevancy and playoff contention, and you're this former 5-star, like you are the guy. But you've shown it only in flashes so far this season, and in your career too. Last year, there were a few bad games, a few great ones. This year, it's been more of the clunkiness and bad games. We haven't really seen, outside of a couple of throws, Lagway be who we want him to be. And then you go and throw 5 interceptions. You can respond in one of 2 very different ways, both of which I believe, Lagway puts the Superman cape on. But is it one of those where you put the cape on and you do a little too much and you throw another couple interceptions, or you try to do too much with your legs and you cough up a fumble, you make bad decisions? Does it go that way? Or do you ride into everything that people believe you can be, and you're hitting your deep shots like you thought you would, and you're being able to improve, get the 3rd and 6 converted with your legs? Are you able to hit the medium to short parts of the football field? This is going to go one of 2 very different ways. Either Lagway is going to live up to the allure that he's had throughout his career, and he is, rebounding from his worst game with one of his best games, or the confidence of a young quarterback is really hurt, and we continue to see him unravel with what would be, I guess his 2nd or 3rd straight week if you want to count South Florida. So I think he's going to put on the Superman cape. I just don't know which way it's going to necessarily go. So let's go to the numbers. There's a few things that stick out about this game. Miami, 2-8 against the spread in home games against FBS opponents since 2020. They have struggled against the spread at home. Meanwhile, Florida, Billy Napier is 26-14-1 as an underdog, 15 outright upsets during his career. Last number, these 2 teams faced each other to start the season last year, and it was a disgusting result for the Gators. Miami led the entire game, beat them 41-7, outgained the Gators 529-261. Utter domination from the Canes. So let's land the plane on this game. I wanted to get this one out first so we can get it out of the way. I can move on and enjoy the rest of my show, and I don't have to sit here lingering over what I know I'm going to do here. I'm going to ride with the Gators. I'm going to ride it until the wheels fall off, until Napier gets fired, until Lagway, I don't even know what would have to happen with him for me to back off this. I believe still that this Florida roster is of top 10 to 12 caliber in this sport. And as low as we are on them from the loss to South Florida, and as low as we are after Lagway throws 5 picks, we still have to understand that, one, they should have won that LSU game if not for the turnover battle, losing the turnover battle 5-1. And they still, this is going to be one of those teams kind of like last year. They started out a little slow and then they got going. There's going to be a point here where this thing clicks for Florida. And for the Canes, if I'm to find like one reason why I don't think they'll get the win here, if I'm comparing their results, because they've been one of the more impressive teams to start the season, crushed South Florida last week, beat Notre Dame in week 1, I would say comparatively, this will be the first game for Miami where their trench play is tested to a different level. And Notre Dame had good trench play, but it was athletes, it was smaller bodies. There is beef, and a whole lot of it alongside the Florida offensive line and the Florida defensive line. I think in this game, Carson Beck will be under pressure and will have his least efficient game. He'll still be good, but he won't be as great as we've seen him play this season. And on the other side, I don't think the Ruben Baines of the world and the Miami defensive line is getting as much pressure, because I think this is the best and biggest offensive line they'll have faced so far this season. I'm going to keep the Gators to keep things close for the majority of this game. And if that happens, I'm going to put a little old Mario Cristobal faith for him to find a way to end up losing it on a key decision here or there, like we've come to know he can do over the course of his career. I hate this pick, but I'm just sticking to my guys here. I'm not a Florida fan, but I do believe this team still has more to prove this season. It's going to start here. Give me the Gators to win by a final score of 24-23. God, I hate this. I hate this. I'm going to be sitting here Monday being like, told you so. And then next Thursday, I'm going to pick them to beat Texas. And if Billy Napier still has a job on Monday, I say, well, here we are. I've been proven wrong 4 weeks in a row now. And then I'll pick them to beat Texas A&M. I really can't get off of the fact that you are never as low as you think you are in this sport, and you're never as high as you think you are. Everybody is riding so high on Miami right now. No one could be lower than the Gators after what we've seen the last few weeks. I think this is a potential get-right spot. So give me the Gators to win a very close game, 24-23. So let's keep moving along. We've got a really fun game happening in the Palace on the Prairie. Auburn at Oklahoma. The Sooners are minus 6.5 points. The over-under is set at 47.5. Big ol' revenge game here for both sides. The relationship between Jackson Arnold and Oklahoma went as poorly as it could through one season. Arnold transfers to Auburn. They are off to a 3-0 start with a big season-opening win over Baylor in week 1. Oklahoma, the meanwhile, goes and gets John Mateer, Ben Arbuckle in from Washington State. They look like one of the best teams we've seen so far this season. Mateer, my pick to win the Heisman. Oklahoma, one of my picks to be in the playoffs. They should easily get by Auburn in this one, right? 6.5 points, that sounds easy. Is it? Let's discuss. The stories of this season for both the teams involves the quarterback position and what I just said. Now, it's a very different story. For Auburn, it's slowly trying to build up the confidence in Jackson Arnold. Unlike last year, at Auburn, he has a much better offensive line. He has much better wide receiver help. He has a better offensive run game and then a better offensive system. Don't forget that Oklahoma's offensive coordinator was fired through like the first 5 or 6 weeks. This isn't like Jackson Arnold left Ben Arbuckle and left a better Oklahoma offensive line and left Deion Burks. Deion Burks was hurt for the majority of last season. He had a really bad situation. Everything Oklahoma replaced him with turned out to be better, but he's got a much better situation for himself here. That being said, how's he going to look against a really tough Oklahoma defense? How is he seeing the field through these first 3 weeks? Is he trusting his eyes and his arm talent? This is going to be the game where we find out. Because in week 1, when they went up against Baylor, and I'm a big Baylor fan, I picked them to win the Big 12 title this season. He threw the ball in the teens. I think it was 16, 17 times. And then he had 2 tune-up games since then. I think he threw it 24, 28 times against those opponents. What does that split look like on Saturday? How much does Hugh Freeze trust his quarterback in what he's seen through spring ball, fall camp, the first 3 weeks? Is he trusting Arnold to toss it 28, 30 times in this game? Against a really good Oklahoma defense? He might have to if they want to win the game, but you're also risking the cost of things going very poorly Arnold losing any confidence he had learned in the last few weeks, and all of a sudden you've got another unraveling here at the quarterback position for Auburn. And then for Oklahoma, it's a much better story. The new additions you've made have delivered on everything you needed. Oklahoma last year had a great defense, and they just had everything go wrong on offense. Everything they've brought in has delivered on their promises. Napier, I think he's the betting favorite for Heisman, if not in the top 2 to 3. Him and Arbuckle have created so much more balance for this team that it's now not you have to win games 13-9. You can put up 30 points and feel good about it, or you can try and grind out this game. But that being said, all we've seen them go up against are a couple of tune-up games and then Michigan. And Michigan, kind of like what we're saying here with Jackson Arnold, did not trust its quarterback to stretch the ball down the field, and that's what ended up being the difference for Oklahoma to pull out that game. Now we need to see it go up against SEC rosters and make sure that the Oklahoma offense can still move the ball against upper echelon teams with minimal hiccups. You can have a few. He's had a few turnovers, a few bad throws. Can you afford to do that within the SEC? We're going to find out. So those have been the stories of the season for both of these teams. The matchup to watch in this game is obviously Jackson Arnold against the Oklahoma defense. No one knows this kid better than Brent Venables, so it'll be very interesting to see how the Sooners decide to game plan against him. Now, I believe that would be a ton of pressure, and maybe that's what Auburn is thinking. So then Oklahoma's like, we're just going to lay back, and we'll let you try and beat us through the ground. It's going to be very interesting to see what the chess match is between Hugh Freeze and Brent Venables here. Auburn has a really good offensive line. Arnold has really been dynamic with his legs so far this season. I think he's run it 35 times through 3 games. But I think that strength does get neutralized against Oklahoma in a defense that I believe has a top 2 to 3 front 7 in this sport. Oklahoma's weakness, if there was one defensively, is on the back end in that secondary. And like I said, I don't know if Hugh Freeze is ready to trust Arnold to start chucking the ball around the field, but he might have to if Oklahoma is marching up and down the field and all of a sudden you can't pull out a 20-17 victory. You have to put up 30 points in order to keep pace with the Sooners. I will say this about this game. Watch out for 2 guys on Auburn. If you're Oklahoma, be careful. Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton. 2 very dynamic receivers in this sport. If Jackson Arnold is going to beat, or if Auburn is going to beat Oklahoma in this game, those 2 guys are going to have to be massive. And I think about a game we just watched this past weekend where Texas A&M goes into a hostile environment. They're underdogs of nearly 7 points, haven't had a road-ranked victory in over a decade. And who were the 2 best players on that field? Mario Craver and Casey Concepcion. The quarterback play was inefficient. Marcel Reed had 20 incompletions to just 17 completions on the day, so it was inefficient play, but those 2 guys made the difference at, high pointing the ball, making some crazy grabs, making guys miss after the catch. Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton are going to need to do that against this Oklahoma defense if they want to have a shot at winning this game. Can they stand out enough where Arnold doesn't have to play with his hair on fire and be something we haven't seen him be yet? That's going to be what I'm watching closely if this game is going to stay tight. So that's the big matchup in this game. Let's talk about some of the numbers that stick out with this. These 2 teams faced last season, and it was where Oklahoma got its first SEC win since joining the conference. Auburn was in full control of that matchup, outgaining Oklahoma by nearly 200 yards. But then Oklahoma went on a 17-0 run in the final 8 minutes to steal the victory, a massive collapse for the Tigers, which we have come to know under Hugh Freeze the last few seasons. All that said about Hugh Freeze, he is still 33-17 against the spread as an underdog with 20 outright victories. Oklahoma, meanwhile, the numbers for them, they've been very solid for Brent Venables, under Brent Venables at home, 15-4 straight up and 11-8 against the spread. However, Venables is just 10-15-1 against the spread in conference games. That, of course, includes the SEC last year and then the Big 12 the couple years before. This game, absolutely terrifies me. And it's kind of like what we were just saying with Miami and Florida. I have had all the confidence in the world since the preseason through the first 3 weeks that Oklahoma is not just a playoff caliber team, not just, one of the more improved teams in the nation. I picked, Napier to be my Heisman at the beginning of the season. I am all in on Oklahoma. And everybody else now is too. Which is why if I listen to previews and predictions and read articles, everybody's like, oh, Oklahoma will win this one by 20. Trap. That's a trap. I pegged the Tigers at the beginning of this season as a frisky, secondary type team in the SEC. And I did say they're in that spoiler category where they are going to knock off one or two teams throughout the season, which give you some faith in Auburn, but it's more about whose season they hurt. Is this going to be one of those games? I'm going to split it right down the middle. I'm going to give you an Oklahoma win, but an Auburn cover. Final score 27-23. I think Auburn's wideouts will make enough plays to keep this thing tight. But at the end of the day, I'm going to take Napier to just make a couple more plays. Maybe it's a few more designed runs. Maybe he's just gritting through between the tackles. The Sooners get out alive with a win. It's not a perfect one. You still have your questions about him. You may be like, oh, wow, did we buy into Oklahoma too much? No, this is just, the talent discrepancy in college football is as narrow as it's ever been. And just because we feel great about Oklahoma and we like to pick on Auburn a little bit, everybody's going to go one way in this game. Not so fast. Oklahoma wins, Auburn covers, final score 27-23. So, let's see, what else do we want to do today? Let's take a little bit of a break. Let's go through with the Sweet 16 Week 4 edition. Again, I will say this at the beginning of every time we discuss it. These are not resume rankings. They are power ratings. My top 16 teams in the country. I am trying to figure out neutral field favorability. If you gave me my number 1 team and my number 2 team and you put them on a neutral field, I would say my number 2 team is rated or is favored in that game. If you gave my 8th team against my 10th team, I would say that my 8th team is favored on a neutral field. That is all we're trying to do here is predict who are, in Vegas's eyes and in my eyes, the 16 best teams in the country. So let's start it off. I need to give a good cue in case I want to use this as a social clip. These are the top 16 rated teams in the country according to the SpringBlake Sweet 16 Eyeball Power Ratings. At number 1, it's been the same since the preseason. It's Penn State. People have their concerns about Penn State's offense so far this year. I think it's one of those classic situations where they just haven't needed to open things up just yet. The real test coming up next Saturday, facing Oregon at home. Cannot wait to watch that game. But Penn State stays at number 1, just like Georgia stays at number 2. Awesome win over Tennessee. Showed me that they could win in a track meet, which is when it's required of them. And I believe this offense has shown it can now kind of keep this roster afloat while the defense figures some things out. I still believe them to be the scariest team in the SEC, and that a huge part of that plays into Kirby Smart still being the head coach there. So Penn State, Georgia stay same at 1 and 2. Ohio State is also still my number 3 team. Defending national champs. The defense has looked dominant all season. Offense has shown a little bit more flash the last 2 weeks in their tune-up games. Interesting road trip for them next week, and as they head to Washington against what I believe to be a really frisky offense and maybe a more talented offense or a more complete offense than we saw from Texas in week 1. Texas, a team that we'll talk about shortly. So top 3 stay the same. Penn State, Georgia, Ohio State. Oregon is up a spot to my number 4 team in the nation. They are probably the team that has looked the best so far this year, outscoring opponents 162-30 through 3 weeks. And as I mentioned, massive game next Saturday for them, traveling across the country to face Penn State in the whiteout game at night. I cannot wait for that one. So those are my top 4. Moving along, Texas has slid down a spot to number 5. They will continue to slide more and more as I get less confident about the offense turning things around. The defense, awesome. Offense, hampered. Injured? I don't know. Either, both, maybe, whatever you want to call it. The team and talent profile is still of top 5 caliber to me. I just need to see this offense to start to get a little bit more stable before I can stop sliding them down, because they were my number 2 team, 3 team in the country. They have now slid down to number 5. Next, I've got a run of 3 teams that have each moved up 3 spots. There's a lot of movement in the latest SpringBlake Sweet 16. Alabama at number 6. They are up 3 spots. The offense has looked awesome the last few weeks. Makes me feel like they're inching closer toward my preseason expectations of this team when I proclaim them as my national champions. Got them up to 6. Oklahoma. They did not fall into their trap game at Temple last weekend. I just told you I predict them to beat Auburn and move and continue on their undefeated season so far. They look like one of the best rosters in the sport. I've got them at 7. And Miami is also up 3 spots to number 8. They have been one of the more deserving teams to continuously climb up the Sweet 16 rankings, up 7 total spots since I had them 15th in the preseason. Just about all my questions surrounding this team have been answered. Really excited to see how they fare against Florida this weekend. Now, this is where we take a little bit of a break with the poll. These next 5 teams are really going to test the mental capabilities of you listening to this show. And I hope, as I said, if you're your first time here, you're trying to become a ball knower. So this one might be a tough one for you. Even if it's your 5th episode, you're still trying to become a ball knower. If you've been here for all 19, hopefully you understand what we do here with the Sweet 16. We are trying to judge neutral field favorability. These next 5 teams is really going to test your brain if you haven't fully understood that just yet. My number 9 rated team in the country, and they are down 3 spots from where they were last week, but still a top 10 team to me, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Yes, the 0-2 Notre Dame Fighting Irish that have lost to Texas A&M and Miami by a combined 4 points. What I'm telling you here is that if you put Notre Dame and Texas A&M, because I haven't mentioned the Aggies just yet, on a neutral field this weekend, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish would be favored. Now, I'm not saying you can't go and bet on the Aggies. Go right ahead. I'm just telling you that if we were to put those 2 teams, I would say the team that would be favored to win the game would be Notre Dame. And if you think that that's crazy, look, there was a crazy way that Texas A&M won. And I don't care that they're 0-2 and that A&M is 3-0. This doesn't reflect resumes. This reflects neutral field favorability. So that is just the start of what we're doing here. Notre Dame at number 9. Now, 10, I don't think people have as much of a gripe. It's really 11, 12, and 13 that people have their issues with. Tennessee, big boy riser, up 4 spots to number 10 in the Week 4 SpringBlake Sweet 16. Now, this one might break brains because they did lose a game and instead jumped, but they showed me more in a loss than I had seen in their wins over East Tennessee State or Syracuse. They proved to me that up against a really talented program, they could go and hang 40 on a team. So even though they lost a game, I felt better about them coming out of it. And I do believe they're a team that is going to flirt with the playoff conversation if they can just, get maybe 1, maybe 2 more losses within the conference. Now at number 11, and I'm sorry this is going to hurt some feelings because the AP poll has them high. A lot of other teams have them, rating systems or rankings have them high. Down 4 spots, my number 11 team in the country, LSU. Stay with me here. I'm wildly impressed with the LSU defense. It's carried this team to a 3-0 start. But I say it's carried this team to a 3-0 start because I do not love really anything we've seen from the offense. As we've gone through the year, we've learned that Clemson isn't really Clemson, right? So that game, you're like, they win by 7. They could have won by more. There was a touchdown that was turned back, poor decisions. Maybe they win that game by 13 instead of 7. I don't know. I still don't feel too great about that outcome. They walked around Louisiana Tech, and they beat Florida by 10 despite causing 5 turnovers. I just don't see complimentary football enough here to think of them as a top 10 team. Garrett Nussmeier is also dealing with an injury. I just need to see a little bit more from the offense. LSU right now is kind of falling back into what my preseason expectations of them were. And then the 2 more. I hope you're still listening. I've given you 3. I got 2 more that you're probably not going to like. Texas A&M is at 12. I gave you the same reason when I talked about Notre Dame being at number 9. I think if you put them on a field together, I would say Notre Dame would be the favored team. I'd say the same if they were facing LSU, Tennessee, so on and so forth. Texas A&M, number 12. I really like what I saw from the offense. I still have my questions about the defense. I still have some concerns about Marcel Reed as an efficient quarterback. It's a lot of highs and then a few but feel good about Texas A&M. Number 12 isn't that far off from where I had them at the beginning of the season. And the last one, and I promise we're gonna get through the rest of this Sweet 16 quickly, but we just have to sit here for a second. Down 5 spots. I've moved them down 5 spots, but still my 13th rated team in the country. It's the Florida Gators. Keep hanging on for dear life, guys. Beat Miami, beat Texas. Just prove me right. Prove that you've got an ounce of life within your roster. I believe the roster is of top 15 caliber in this sport. I believe when the quarterback is playing at its best, they are a top 10 team in the country. Can we start to see that? Can you validate? I said at the beginning of the season that if there was one team that would be below 500 and still remain in my top 16 rated teams, it would be Florida. You're seeing it here. They're 1-2, number 13 in the country. And then we'll just wrap it up. These 3 teams have stayed in some semblance of my Sweet 16 in this range the entire season. Utah is up 2 spots. They're my 14th rated team in the nation. We're about to preview their game against Texas Tech in just a second. Model of consistency under Kyle Whittingham, vastly improved offense with the additions at coordinator, quarterback that they pulled from New Mexico. Like I said, we'll break them down shortly against Texas Tech. Texas Tech is just outside my top 16, but it makes for a really fun matchup this weekend. And then 15, 16, I've got Michigan, USC. The Wolverines showed me last week that they're ready to let Bryce Underwood run, which gives me faith about them going into Nebraska and beating the Cornhuskers. We will not be previewing that game today, but that's my pick. I think if Michigan is going to allow its star player to be more of a star player, then they'll be able to pick up some wins and still, get a really big conference victory despite, everybody being so down on them from 2 weeks ago against Oklahoma. And then 16 down a spot, I've got USC. It's weird flipping those teams there, but Vegas seems to agree with me. These 2 teams face off in California later in the season. Michigan is a road favorite of that line right now. Michigan minus 1.5 over the Trojans. So again, I think it's a pretty close battle there, but Vegas seems to agree with me right now that Michigan resembles a better team. So that is the Sweet 16. I don't really love how that went. We spent too much time on it, but regardless, my top 16 rated teams in the country. I need a glass of water. We've gone through half of this show without needing one, so I'm very impressed with myself. I'll be back in just about 2 seconds.
My name's Blake.
So now that the Sweet 16 is out of the way, let's get back to one more game preview of the week. And boy, oh boy, we've got a potential game of the Big 12 regular season happening in Provo, Utah, Saturday. Crispy morning. Texas Tech traveling to Utah to face the Utes. The Utes are minus 2.5 point favorites in this one. Over under set at, is it 58.5 now? 58.5 points in that one, which is crazy to see for a Utah conference game. Massive game. Right now, the 2 betting favorites to win this conference are Texas Tech and Utah. We may get this rematch at the end of the regular season for conference championship weekend. The stories of the season. For Utah, it's been the revelation of offensive competency. Devon Dampier has come in from New Mexico and provided the Utes with a similar version of what we're witnessing at Oklahoma with John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle. Now for Texas Tech, the story has been money talks. $55 million put into the roster. Early returns have been incredibly impressive. They're outscoring opponents 174-35 while looking like a roster that is built to compete in like the SEC and Big Tens of the world. Now the matchup to watch. You cannot ignore what's going to go down here in the trenches where Utah's offensive line, who's allowed just 3 sacks on the year, top 5-6 group in the country, is going up against Texas Tech's defensive line, who already has 9 sacks on the season and the best that you'll find in the conference. So you're getting the Big 12's best offensive line, the Big 12's best defensive line, hammering it out against each other. Incredibly impressive matchup and will be the thing that to me determines this game is who has the edge in this one. Now the numbers that stick out in this game, Utah is 34-7 straight up and 25-16 against the spread at home since 2018. model of consistency. Everybody says it's death, taxes, Utah. And Texas Tech, on the flip side, 0-6, both straight up and against the spread in their last 6 road openers. Joey McGuire as the head coach for the Red Raiders, 6-10 on the road. So you're getting a classic battle of one team's great at home, one team's shaky on the road. How will it all play off? So you're giving me 2 teams that I believe have pretty equal roster talent. Now, Texas Tech has put a lot of more money and funds into it, and they might have more juice specifically on defense. But I believe the rosters are pretty even in talent. You're giving me one coach that has been the model of consistency in this sport for the last decade plus in Kyle Whittingham, and also gets to play in front of what is an awesome home crowd. And then meanwhile, the other side has had its issues playing on the road and has yet to really prove in his tenure that they are ready to contend with the Big 12 title tier. I don't know if I said that correctly. Let's try that again. Let's land the plane on the game. We're going to do whoop, 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 whoop. Reset. In this game, Texas Tech, Utah, you're giving me 2 very different teams, but teams that I believe are equal in talent. You know, Texas Tech has pumped a ton of money in, and maybe they have edge at certain defensive positions. Maybe they've got more names. But continuity at Utah always gives me faith in them. So on one side, you're giving me the model of consistency for the last decade plus, and you're giving me a team that gets to play at home, which they are usually always great at home. And then on the other side, you're giving me a team that has a lot of new pieces, very talented ones, but has yet to really had to come together as a team when things get close and tight. They have yet to be tested this regular season. And this team over here also struggles on the road in the tenure of its head coach over the last, 4-5 regular seasons. Texas Tech has yet to prove to me they're ready to be the contender in the Big 12. They've always taken that small step. I believe it's been a couple 5-4 Big 12 regular seasons and then a 6-3. They've yet to really make that jump to where oh no, we have to take Texas Tech as a legit player in the conference title picture. This could be the arrival game, but I'll need to see it before I believe it. Give me the Utes to win a close, lower scoring game by a final score of 26-21. Did I go all home teams? No, I took Florida. Good. Oh, good. I took home teams and then Florida. That won't go poorly. But yes, I'm taking Utah to win out. I believe that the story with Texas Tech this season is can you just pay guys a bunch of money and put them on the field and see how they all do together? And early on, they've shown us they can. As I said, they're tearing through their opponents through the first 3 weeks. Utah is just always a better equipped team. It might not be about the individuals that stand out, but the collective team is always what stands out at Utah. So this is going to be a real test of 2 eras of college football. And I'm just going to put my faith in that camaraderie and continuity pays out here. So I think it'll be close. I think it could very well be a rematch we see in conference title weekend, but give me the Utes 26-21. And that is going to be all of our best bets, all of our game previews. Wow, way to spoil the teaser, Blake. Terrible transition. That is going to wrap up game previews of the week. I'm looking at the shot clock. We probably could have done another one in here, but I didn't write it out, so we're not going to. Let's finish the show. 5 best bets of the week. Again, SpringBlake is going up against ChatGPT. We're giving our 5 best bets of the week. Now, while I am just trying to beat ChatGPT, and we'll talk the numbers, we're off to a great start, I want to keep winning money. I want to keep making money. I want to keep giving you guys winners, and we delivered on that last week. 3-1-1, 11-8-1 on the season. We were up almost 3 units. We are up 2.94 units on the season. ChatGPT has had 2 3-2 weeks, but had a really rough week 0 and week 1. ChatGPT 9-11 on the season, down 3 units on the year. So let's go through with my 5 best bets of the week. I've got 5 winners. Winner, 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 winner. And let's start off in the game we just discussed. Texas Tech at Utah. I am taking the under of 58.5. I think that's a crazy total. I think you're getting a team on its first road trip, early game in Utah, traveling Texas to Utah, early game, tough environment. Utah, historically good defense. I also think Texas Tech's defense will show up in this game. So 58.5 is pretty high for me. So give me the under in that game. Really love that play to get us an early win Saturday morning. And we're going to double down on some unders. We're going to go to Florida and Miami. We're going to take under 51.5. Now, Miami went over in its game against Notre Dame. They put up a ton of points, 27-24. I do believe, and as I mentioned in the preview of this game, that Miami's trench play won't stand out as well as it did against Notre Dame or against their last few opponents, Bethune, Cook, and USF. I think Florida will be able to minimize the impact that Miami's run game has and then also give Carson Beck less time to throw. So if you're getting a less efficient Miami offense, I think the point total is going to drag down because of that. And look, if I'm proven wrong on Florida, they're not going to be able to put up much points in this one either. So give me the under of 51.5 in that game. Wait a minute. I didn't make that a best bet, did I? Fuck. That's incorrect. I need a new best bet. We're going to give 4, and then I'm going to try and figure out... Oh, no, I know my fifth one. We're going to go next to a really gross number in a really gross game that nobody's going to watch, but that's why we're going to make money off of it. Georgia Tech, coming off the biggest win of the season, the signature win for Brent Key, after they've always been kind of just flirting. They almost beat Georgia last year in the 6 overtime game. They always just get close enough. They got the big win over Clemson, and now they host Temple. And they're 24-point favorites, and we are going to take the Owls to keep this one close. I'm not saying they're going to win it outright, but I do think it's a little bit of a letdown spot for the Yellow Jackets coming off such a monumental win. So we're going to take Temple plus 24 as a best bet. Next, we're going to move back to the Big 12. Another big conference game here. Baylor taking on Arizona State. I believe that you are getting... inflated numbers here for the Sun Devils because of how good they were last season and because of how many guys they return. They're almost a little bit of a Clemson situation where I look at the Sun Devils and I say, well, you didn't really improve that much from where you were last season. Meanwhile, I think the Baylor Bears are one of the best teams in the conference. Their offense is high-flying. Sawyer Robertson is playing some of the best of any quarterback is in the nation right now. Give me the Bears minus 2.5 over the Sun Devils, and the conversation will be like, oh no, not only did they get upset by Mississippi State, now they lost to Baylor. Everybody's going to come to realize that Arizona State doesn't have the same juice. They haven't realized it yet, which is why we're getting a good number here. So take the Baylor Bears minus 2.5. I need one more game. I need one more game. Where are we going to go with this one? Holy shit. I need one more. I don't know why. I wrote down Oklahoma minus 6.5, but I bet I gave a preview of Auburn to cover. Let's take a look at some FanDuel lines now. Shout out to FanDuel. We are not sponsored by FanDuel, but I always say it on this show. FanDuel allows me to do everything. I used to be a DraftKings bettor. I used to do really well on DraftKings, and then they stopped letting me. They stopped letting me put the amounts of money I want on player props, on parlays, touchdown parlays. They started minimizing what I was allowed to bet. I would try and bet $50 on a game. And they would say, how about 5? Bet 5 instead. Fuck you. FanDuel lets me do whatever I want to do. Shout out to FanDuel. Where do I want to go? This is a tough one. I need one more bet. Oh, I've got it. Here it is. We're going to go back to my tried and true. I bet on this team a few times. I don't think I've lost on them just yet. Actually, I did. But we're going to go to Kansas, where I'm going to take the Jayhawks minus 12.5 against West Virginia. West Virginia coming off its signature win over Pittsburgh in a gritty overtime game. Kansas potentially coming off a bye week. I don't fully remember where they were, but I like minus 12.5 over the Mountaineers. So that will be my 5th best bet of the week. So again, just to recap. Texas Tech and Utah under 58.5. Florida versus Miami under 51.5. Temple plus 24.5 against Georgia Tech. It's so gritty that I love it. And we're taking Baylor minus 2.5 at home against Arizona State, with Kansas at home minus 12.5 against West Virginia. So those are my best bets of the week. Let's get ChatGPTs out so that we can send you on into an awesome week of college football because we all deserve it. Now, this time I used to just give ChatGPT's picks out, this, and this. They do give me short little blurbs, so I'm going to read you what they say. So they are first going to USC minus 18.5 against Michigan State. ChatGPT, quote, USC is heavily favored, and they've been strong offensively. MSU has struggled versus top-tier teams, and I expect USC to win big. These blurbs only get funnier. They are taking Utah minus 2.5 against Texas Tech, a pick that I like. Again, I mentioned that. I like this pick here by ChatGPT. Utah is slightly favored in what might be a competitive game. The small spread gives value, and I believe Utah's defense will make the difference. Thank you, ChatGPT, for that note. They are next taking Purdue plus 25.5 versus Notre Dame. Quote, Notre Dame is laying a big number. If Purdue can manage a decent offensive outing and slow down Notre Dame, I think there's value in taking the underdog and getting the points. Expert analysis there, ChatGPT. And then we've got two more. They are taking Indiana minus 6.5 over Illinois. Quote, Indiana is favored in that matchup and has shown more consistency. Illinois could keep it close, but I like Indiana to cover the moderate spread. And last but not least, they're heading to another game that we've already previewed. And they're taking the same side that we are. ChatGPT is taking Auburn plus 6.5 at Oklahoma. Quote, Oklahoma is favored, but Auburn has showed more potential and could give Oklahoma trouble. Getting nearly a touchdown on Auburn seems like a good hedge. That one, this is where I say, like, my battle with ChatGPT. I don't know if it's been like the most fun or electric thing we've done, because quotes like that, Auburn has shown more potential and could give Oklahoma, I don't know if they've shown more potential than Oklahoma. Oklahoma looks like a top 10 team. But anyway, those are ChatGPT's bets. And that is going to do it here for us at the SpringBlake College Football Show. Enjoy your Thursday. Enjoy your Friday if you're listening then. Enjoy your college football weekend. Don't take this one lightly. Some really great games as we've just previewed. Next week, boy, oh boy, we've got a double-decker, Oregon, Penn State, Alabama, Georgia. I can't wait to talk all of it with you. I appreciate your support. Again, like, subscribe to the channels, 5-star reviews, follow the socials at SpringBlake CFB. I appreciate the support. I love you, and I'll talk to you next week. Peace.